So what you may have heard about the restaurant, a few weeks after we opened our Western-themed restaurant, there was an altercation where a man was brutally beaten outside of the restaurant. Show up in the morning, there's crime scene tape everywhere, there's police officers. I was talking with some of the officers that I knew, asking what had happened. And there was a man who was beaten pretty badly, and he ended up losing his life. And so that immediately prompted the question in me, how am I going to take care of everyone? How am I going to protect the people that are around me? So I went across the street and talked to a local gun dealer, a gun salesman, and I asked him about Colorado's carry laws. And he said, well, you can carry openly without a permit. So that's what I did. I began to open carry. Soon after that, my waitresses began to open carry, and the next thing you know, Shooter's Grill was being called the safest restaurant in America.
I actually didn't know that part of your story, but it's a pretty perfect through line to you own a restaurant now.
Yes, I do.
So you were doing something right back in high school at McDonald's.
Yes, I'm a very spontaneous person by nature. Sometimes I see it as my greatest downfall, but sometimes it works out pretty well. And I ended up leaving McDonald's, and I went into the oil and gas industry for a while. I was filing some papers at a local company, and then decided to go out in the field and do work, and I was a pipeline technician. So locating pipeline, doing cathodic protection without an engineering degree. It's possible to do work without a 4-year college degree. And so I was locating pipelines, I was GPSing the pipelines, making maps of them, doing cathodic protection, which is... We install anodes to protect the pipe from corroding. And so it's just this fascinating part of my job that I loved, and got to drive all around the valley and hike up and down mountains, locating these pipes and making sure they were protected. And then the oil and gas industry started to be heavily regulated. Colorado saw the industry pulling out. So a lot of us, our days were numbered. I ended up leaving and decided to be a stay-at-home mom. I had 3 boys then, and said, I'm going to just be with my boys for a while. And unfortunately, a little bit later, it got worse. And so my husband ended up running out of contracts, and he wasn't working in the industry anymore. And we said we needed a plan B. There was a local restaurant that shut down. And it was one of our favorites. It was called the Cowboy Cafe, CALF-A. Yes.
Got it.
And they closed down, and they had a for rent sign in the window. And we drove by one day and said, maybe we could do this. And so we went in. It was a great deal to lease the place. The equipment was there. And we decided whenever he went back to work to start investing his paycheck into the restaurant and opening it up. Very spontaneous, never owned a restaurant before. But I wanted a way to give back to my community. A lot of our friends were unemployed, and they needed opportunity again. And that opportunity wasn't there in the oil and gas industry like it had been. And so we opened up, we hired our waitresses, our kitchen staff, and we were just a Western-themed restaurant wanting to give excellent service to our community. And it was a pretty great place. When we first opened, I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have any money for advertising. So we went door to door on the first day to each business and said, hey, come in and have a free meal on us. And that was cheaper than any advertising I could have done. And it worked. People liked it, and they were coming back. So what you may have heard about the restaurant, a few weeks after we opened our Western-themed restaurant, there was an altercation where a man was brutally beaten outside of the restaurant. Show up in the morning, there's crime scene tape everywhere, there's police officers. I was talking with some of the officers that I knew, asking what had happened. And there was a man who was beaten pretty badly, and he ended up losing his life. And so that immediately prompted the question in me, how am I going to take care of everyone? How am I going to protect the people that are around me? So I went across the street and talked to a local gun dealer, a gun salesman, and I asked him about Colorado's carry laws. And he said, well, you can carry openly without a permit. So that's what I did. I began to open carry. Soon after that, my waitresses began to open carry, and the next thing you know, Shooter's Grill was being called the safest restaurant in America.
Shooter's Grill, so
yes.
there is the name.
Yes.
And there have been no shootings at Shooter's Grill.
No.
People are not murdering each other or anything like that. You know, it's interesting because you mentioned at the top that your story, the Democrats should sort of love your story. But in a way, I get why they hate your story. You came from nothing. You worked hard. You did a bunch of stuff. You kept growing. You care about family.
Right.
That's a problem for them. They can't have the success story.
Right. They are okay with you turning a blind eye to their failures. You know, if the man in the White House has a son who's lost 3 laptops and is addicted to smoking Parmesan cheese, you know, we can turn a blind eye to that.
Right.
If a CNN analysis, you know, gets caught doing some very, very horrendous, inappropriate things on a Zoom meeting, then, you know, that's okay as long as he comes on and says, I'm sorry. But no, that real life, when things get tough, you get tougher, and you make success out of failures. You learn from your mistakes and you continue. You don't let that hold you back or keep you down, and you offer to other people a way to have success in their lives. That is what they hate.
So when did you decide, okay, I've got these ideas, my life's in order now, restaurants working, got the family, let me get into politics, of all things.
Well,
let me throw that all away.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, being in the restaurant, I mean, a lot of people come in there complaining about the issues of the day. I think you and I could probably relate with being involved in Republican politics, because we're both kind of new to that. I voted Republican, but I wasn't paying attention to who I was voting for, why I was voting for them, and what happened in between those elections. And so I'm actually fairly new to that process. I just know, as a business owner, they were affecting my business. They were affecting my family. They were affecting the paychecks that we were able to bring home. I was electing people who I thought had my same views, but then they would get to Washington, D.C. or to the state capitol, overregulate, overtax, overspend, and destroy everything that we're trying to build at home. And so we talk about that kind of stuff in the restaurant. And I really believe that a lot of our problems in America is because we had an entire generation, at least, say you're not allowed to talk about religion or politics. And now we have an entire generation that is ignorant about the things of God and government. And you're not allowed to have that.
They've made politics religion, basically.
Yes, exactly. That is their God. Government is their God. And that's why they believe that government can come in and rule you, and you need to submit, and they can take rights away from you because they are the grantor of those rights.
Speaking my language.
Yes. Yes. And so in my restaurant, you're free to talk about those things, even if you disagree with me. Freedom of speech is so under attack right now. And if we lose that, we lose everything. Hate speech is free speech. Speech that you disagree with is free speech. And this is something that we have to protect. So this isn't just a Second Amendment issue or a 10th Amendment issue. This is everything, our livelihoods and everything moving forward. We know what big tech is doing to censor freedom of speech. And really, it's the first time in history that big tech, an entity this big, is more of a threat than big government, because this is someone playing the role of government in your life and taking things from you. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to just sit and complain about what was going on. I wanted to be a part of the solution. And I didn't know what that meant. But suddenly there was this suave, pretty boy from Texas who got up on a presidential debate stage and he slipped up. Beto O'Rourke told the whole world what Democrats plan to do with your Second Amendment. He said, hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15s and your AK-47s. So I got pretty upset, and I drove to his presidential rally. My husband said, what are you doing? Well, that's 3 hours away. Like, we don't have the fuel, the extra gas money to do that. And I said, no, I'm going to talk to this guy. He said, you just think they're going to let you talk to him? It's like, I don't know, but I'm going. Very spontaneous. So I drove 3 hours to his presidential rally with my Glock on my hip. And I looked him in the eye and told him, hell no, you're not. And I was just so frustrated. And millions of Americans were just as frustrated as me. And they were reaching out to me saying, thank you. This is exactly what we felt. And I said, who is speaking up for them? And if me, just a mom of 4 boys from Rifle, Colorado, a restaurant owner, can say something so impactful that the nation listens, what else could I do to help bring awareness to what's happening and hold these people accountable and try to make a bad situation right.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.